And welcome to my tier list discussion, where we're gonna rank every Castlevania game, and this is what I've decided to do for the ranking: an S rank, and all the way down to an E, which is like a failure. So this is the worst. S is obviously the best. We're gonna rank every game, and of course, there's a not played category here. Is Castlevania Judgment, which we haven't played, but we will play eventually. So we're just not including it for this tier list discussion. We have the Kid Dracula, the Game Boy version. We played the Famicom version, which is here. So this is not included. This is Castlevania, the Dracula X Chronicles, which is a PSP game that has like a remake of Rondo of Blood on it. We didn't play that. I hear it's like a little bit different, but like I didn't see it enough as a difference to play it in the marathon. One day we might come back and check that game out, but for the purpose of the marathon, we didn't do it. And then the last one here is Harmony of Despair, which is like a 360 game that was online and was like kind of multiplayer game. It wasn't included on the official Wikipedia page of the Castlevania franchise. I think there is a fan port on PC, so you're able to play that Harmony of Despair, but it was not in the official list on the Wikipedia page, so it got excluded in the marathon. We're not counting that game. So these are the 4 games that we didn't play. And here are all the games that we did play, down here to the bottom here. And let's just get started from the what we think is the worst. And as we're going, we might come back and discuss why. We might discuss like change some things eventually, like, oh, maybe this deserves to be up higher and stuff. We'll get to that. So let's talk about Castlevania Legends. This game, man, is ass. This is such a bad game. It really is not good. It's slow like Castlevania Adventure. It's the last Game Boy game. It was the last Classicvania before they started doing like way more Metroidvanias. And this game is just trash. There's so many bad, weird things about this game. Like, first of all, there's the weird mechanic in this game where there's like a boost mode. And the boost mode makes like most of the gameplay like irrelevant. So you would activate this boost mode, and then like you can like just run through the level, and it's actually required in some stages. There's like some candles that you hit in this game that like drop you into like death pits, man. Here it is right here. You come into here and be like, oh, what's this candle? And you hit it, and it just drops you into a death trap. And that's bullshit. And then what they want you to do here is use your boost mode, but they don't teach you how to use the boost mode at any point. So I had to figure that out on my own. This game is just trash. And don't get me started on the level design. The level design had just so many dead ends. The game makes no sense. The level design makes zero sense. You'll be walking in like one direction for like 20 minutes, like 10 minutes probably, and you get to the end of a section and it's just a dead end, and you have to turn back. Other than the death pits and the levels, the bosses aren't very fun. Is it worse than the modern 3D one, says Dr. What? It's the worst Classicvania one for sure, so I think it's in the same ranking. Also, all the enemies suck. Look at these enemy designs. These like weird fucking, I don't even know what they're like sperm ghosts. A lot of the enemies are copy and pasted. There's shitty spear guards everywhere. The Dracula fight was not particularly fun. The boss fights were not particularly good. The level design was bland, felt copy and pasted. This was one of the worst games in the marathon. So, as a result, this is going to get an E ranking. So our Castlevania Legends lands itself into the rank of E. This is the worst Classicvania game. This was the worst in the franchise. In terms of these original games. We might move it up later depending on when we get to later discussions of games and stuff. We'll see. But for now, we're going to put this in E. It was bad. I would not recommend anyone play this game. It's not worth playing. It's a bad game. Castlevania Legends is not good. Should we go from bottom to top, or should we go in the order that we played them? What do you guys think? I'm actually starting to think like maybe we should go in the order that we played them. Order you played them in? Oh, you think that's a better idea? We can do that too. Order? Yeah, order I played them in. Okay, so we're not gonna do. Okay, so for now, we're going out of order in the beginning. We'll just say the Castlevania Legends is one of the worst ones, and I wanted to get that off my chest. So let's start with the order we played them in, I guess. Let's switch to that. So yeah, Castlevania 1, the legendary start of the franchise here. I think released in 1986. This game started it all and deserves the utmost credit. Also, I think it's like has some of the best level design and enemy placement in any Nintendo Entertainment System game. My first playthrough of this game was life-changing. First of all, Dracula took me 4 hours, my first attempt. Dracula kicked my ass. The death stage with the knights kicked my ass. That game, like, prepared me. Like, that game was, like, the start of it all for the rest of the marathon. That game, like, got my ass in gear and was like, Jeff, you gotta show up. You gotta show up and actually play these games. I went in feeling so cocky. In the first video here, I was so cocky. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this my first try. I'm not gonna die at all. I had a death counter that I gave up on because I died so much. This is really where the run got shitty. This is really where the run where I had the most meltdowns. I spent so much time on this stage. This level with death was really bad. But I must say that design-wise, the game is fantastic. Design-wise, the game is fantastic. For that point, this game deserves a top ranking spot. Castlevania 1 deserves either an A or an S rank, in my opinion. How do you guys feel in chat? I'm feeling like an A. It is, I think, genius and like basically defines what Classicvania is. Like, they nailed it perfectly on their first shot. But does it deserve that S legendary status? Maybe it does. Maybe it does deserve that S rank. That's gonna be a tough one. Either Castlevania is either S or A. Let's put it in S for now, and we'll come back later. It is a legendary game. It is legendary. So many things they just got right on the first try. Either S or A. I can't decide right now. We'll come back and kind of tune this up as we go. Next, I want to talk about Simon's Quest. Now, this is such a hard one to pinpoint because I really respect it and how influential it was for the franchise. There it is. I really respect... I'm not placing this in D. I'm just putting it up here somewhere. I really respect that this was the first non-linear game, and it had a lot of hints of what was to come in the franchise. I mean, you had the first open world. You had NPCs that you could talk to. You could buy items, for example. Simon's Quest was a revolutionary in some ways. I would say it's one of the most influential games on the NES. It's an open world game. It's like a really interesting game. And the problem with Simon's Quest, though, the problem is that the hardware just wasn't ready for how ambitious the game is. So there's a lot of bullshit in that game, and also just like the fact that translations at the time from Japanese were so bad and cryptic. It just makes it a very shitty and hard game to play, and it's gotten a bad reputation as a result of, you know, YouTubers that come and shit on the game. But I honestly think that it's a decent game. It's just like a little ahead of its time, and it gets a bad rep just because there's some parts in it that are really obtuse. And it also, we have to give credit to Simon's Quest that they also gave us Bloody Tears. Simon's Quest was the birth of Bloody Tears, one of the GOAT Castlevania songs. And yeah, Simon's Quest inspired the return to the Metroidvania style. So for influence in the franchise, it is insane. Simon's Quest is an insane game that deserves credit, but it's not one of the best. So that's the dilemma. Are we talking about influence here? Are we just talking about like if the game is good, you know? Those are different categories. If we're talking about like one of the most influential games, Simon's Quest might be at the top. But we're not talking about influential. We're talking about like, is the game playable? Is it fun? Was it fun for me to play and go through? I got lost a shit ton and I didn't know what to do. There's some real bullshit parts. You have to throw holy water at everything in the game to figure out what to do. The invisible floors and walls and shit is so annoying. There's a lot of bad shit in that game. It would have been legendary if it wasn't released for the NES. Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, if they, or maybe it's just like rushed. It's not for everyone, but it's higher than Castlevania 1 on my personal list. I'd say a B is fun. I'm going to keep it right here at C, I think. We're going to keep it at C for now because I like the game. The level designs in the mansions is kind of copy and pasted. The towns are copy and pasted. I understand that those are probably limitations of the hardware. I understand that. But I think for now, we're going to keep this in the C ranking here, Simon's Quest. We'll come back and we'll adjust, but for now, we're going to keep Simon's Quest as a C. I think it's a really underappreciated game. I think a lot of people place it down here and it doesn't deserve it. A lot of people put it down in this E rank and they think it's trash and they think it's completely worthless and they should never play the game. But I think that there are some aspects of the game that are salvageable. You know, I think it deserves to be in the middle of either in the middle of the ranking or a little above the middle. But right now we're going to keep it here in C. Okay, let's move on here to the next game in the marathon. I'm pretty sure next was Castlevania The Adventure. That was the third game in the marathon. So this game is going to be complicated. This game is going to be hard to rank, especially because I started to like it towards the end of my playthrough. Yeah, so next is Castlevania The Adventure. So Castlevania Adventure is the first Game Boy game, and it is right here, this guy here. Castlevania Adventure is crawling slow. It runs like crap, and it's only 4 stages. It's only 4 stages, but stages 3 and 4 have some of the most tight jumping that I've ever experienced. Some of the jumps are so precise and tight, and the fact that the game is so slow, it really tests your patience. And in my entire marathon, I never used save states, so restarting these levels over and over again in Castlevania The Adventure was awful. It was awful. It is not the worst game. I think there's some good parts about it. I like the mechanic of getting, like, upgrading your whip and then your whip being able to shoot fireballs. I think that was really cool. I think that's a cool addition to, it makes the Game Boy games unique in terms of like the series. The fact that you can upgrade that whip and then shoot fireballs is pretty cool. But yeah, for me, I wouldn't say it's as bad as Castlevania Legends, but it's not as good as Simon's Quest for sure. And it's nowhere near Castlevania. So I think Castlevania Adventure deserves a D ranking. I'm going to put it at D. By the end of the game, I started like, Mazin was in my chat, who is the world record holder of that game, and he was trying to convince me to speedrun it, that he tries to do to anyone that plays the game on Twitch here. He'll go into your chat. He's going to harass you about saying how you have potential and how you should speedrun the game. So beware, if you're ever streaming Castlevania The Adventure, he will find you and he's going to make you feel like you're good at the game or you have potential and then try to convince you to speedrun it. But do not fall for his tricks. He almost tricked me. He almost tricked me into doing it. And I'm so glad that I escaped his grasps. I just weaseled my way out of that one. So he loves this game like too much. He loves this game too much. He's doing this thing on YouTube where he's like trying to beat it like 30 times in a row without dying to like break the score counter in the game. And to me, he's just insane. That guy is insane, and don't let him come into your chat and convince you to speedrun this game. Mazin, if you're watching this right now, I will never speedrun this game. I would rather speedrun Rebirth than speedrun this one. I'm sorry, friend. You did not get me. You got Agent Frowny, you can't get me. He would put Adventure on S. He would. He's that kind of guy. He's the guy that puts this game on S. All right, so moving on here. Moving on. The next game in the marathon, game number 4, was the NES game Castlevania 3. So Castlevania 3 is up Dracula's Curse. Dracula's Curse. Here it is. We're just going to put it up here. We're just going to put it up somewhere where it's not going to be a C. We're just putting it up here for reference. So Dracula's Curse, I like Castlevania 3 a lot. And that's another influential game in the franchise, and that it's a linear game in ways, but then it was the first game to implement those paths where you can go different routes. Like that's really influential, and you see that in other Castlevania games, like you see that in Rondo of Blood, and you see it in Dracula X. You don't see it in Castlevania 4, but some other Castlevania games had those alternate paths. Castlevania Adventure Rebirth had those alternate paths that you could find and discover and stuff, right? So we have to give credit that Dracula's Curse is a legendary game. Also, is the first game where you could play as different characters. Depending on the path that you went, you could get a different character: Sypha, Grant, Alucard, right? So that's pretty big too. That's pretty big in terms in the franchise. Talking about my problem with Dracula's Curse is the fact that depending on your route, and you're just a blind player going in without any reference point, you don't know anything about the game, you're going in controller in hand, you're ready to play Dracula or Castlevania 3, and you're about to start, and depending on what route you go, the game can be completely different difficulty wise. Depending on your route, you can really get fucked up, man, and you could cause you to reset because the route you've chosen is like harder than the other route. So I think the game has some legit issues when it comes to balancing those route choices and what that means for a blind playthrough. My problems with it is that it's cheap at times, and the meat is scarce. The meat is scarce. I felt like my entire playthrough, I'm like, where's the meat? Where's the meat? And I'm just whipping at every fucking wall I see. It also introduced Alucard as a character. That is true. I remember just like whipping everything in the game, and I just couldn't like find meat the entire game, and it really pissed me off. Especially level 9. I'll never forget my battle in level 9. That was the hardest level maybe in all of the franchise. One of the at least top 5 hardest levels in all of Castlevania. With using Sypha, not having Alucard. If you have Alucard on that route, that level is easier. But having Sypha on that route was rough. My personal opinion, after the discussion of the balancing issues, Dracula's Curse is not as good as Castlevania 1, but it's better than Simon's Quest. We got to put Dracula's Curse in a B. I'm putting my personal ranking for Castlevania 3 is B. I don't think it matches the level design brilliance of 1, but it improves on 1 in a lot of ways, but I think it also the non-linearity actually detracts from it a bit, I think. So we're going to put it on B. Maybe we'll come back and we'll adjust and move like this up to S and this up to B. Depends. Nothing is set in stone, okay guys? We're just going one by one here. And let's move on here. All right, so the next game in the marathon was Belmont's Revenge. This is an interesting game here. All right, this is the sequel to the first Game Boy game. And so here again, you're playing as Christopher Belmont, the same character as Castlevania Adventure 1. But it felt like with this game, Konami really understood how to make a game for the Game Boy. The game is drastically improved in terms of like how it runs, the performance. Belmont's Revenge is a really underrated game. And honestly has some of the best music tracks on the Game Boy, period. The music in Belmont's Revenge is fantastic. And I think this is one of these points where we have to consider the music. We have to go to YouTube here, and we have to we're going to pause our background music here, and we're going to actually look up our Castlevania Belmont's Revenge soundtrack here. We have to look it up. Like this is like the hub world where you can choose levels. So the cool thing about this game is that you could choose levels. So you have like a start of the game, and there's like 4 different areas that you can choose. I don't know why YouTube wants to use my microphone. Go away. So it's non-linear in the sense, it's like kind of like a Mega Man game where you choose the stage you want to go to in the beginning of the game, and then it gets linear. So that was kind of cool. Let me find the level, the music for the level that is really good. Just listen to that. It just goes in all swinging. The music is insane. It is so crispy, too. I think it's Ripe Seeds. I think this is the song I'm thinking of. Oh, man, it's so good. The music is insane. How I never heard of this game until the marathon. No one talks about this game at all. No one talks about it. The level design is actually fantastic. The level design is actually really good. There's secrets in every level. The boss fights are fun and hard. The last boss, there's a really big difficulty spike at the end that is, it looks good too. It does look good. It is a great looking game. Great pixel art for the Game Boy. Music is great. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this game. When considering the hardware it was made for, it's a masterpiece in some ways. I mean, you're talking about a little Game Boy, man. Like, they made a game, an action game that ran well and plays well on the Game Boy, and it's actually fun. It's actually fun. There's one more song that I want to, I think it's Praying Hands. I think this is the next one. That is really good. Oh my god. Just listen to that. Just close your eyes and just listen to... It's just like some of the best 8-bit on the Game Boy. So do you want to think it's an A? This might be an A. Belmont's Revenge might be an A. Because it was just came out so left field and blew me away. It is such an improvement over the sequel. It is such an improvement over the sequel. Great music, great levels, fun bosses. Christopher Belmont coming into his own as a character. The music itself just makes me like Craigasm. The music itself is just makes my head want to explode. Alright, yeah. I think not a lot of people will agree with me here. I think my opinion is a little unique. My perspective on these games is a little unique, I think. I think a lot of people would put this kind of bottom rank, but I'm putting Belmont's Revenge up on the same level as Castlevania 3, if not same as an A rank, tied with Castlevania. Because it is a really fun game. It is a really fun game, and it's really well designed, and it's not frustrating. It's hard. It gets hard. The Dracula fight is hard, but it's not frustrating. So Belmont's Revenge is going to get an A rank for me. I think that's what we're going to do, is an A rank for Belmont's Revenge. Next up here is, what do we have next? Okay, so next was Castlevania 4. So right after that, we're jumping over to the 16-bit era with the first 16-bit game, which was Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo. I think released in like 1991, I want to say. I think it was released in like something like that, 1991. Actually released the same year as Belmont's Revenge, I believe. I have huge nostalgic goggles when it comes to Castlevania 4. It was my first Castlevania game. It was the only game that I've finished and beaten before the marathon without save states. The first Castlevania game that I sat down, I played in college for the first time. I played Castlevania 4. It's a great game. My opinion, my personal experience is that it's one of the best in the series. I know some people will argue, oh, the graphics are a bit muddy, the performance is a little laggy. You know, especially in those I think the mode 7, right? Are we talking about mode 7? Is that what it's called, right? I always forget. But the rotating kind of effect that they used for the first time on the Super Nintendo. So yeah, there is some performance issues with this game, but I think one, the music is so good. The music is probably some of the best in the franchise. In my opinion, it has maybe the best version of Bloody Tears, and the levels are great. It's a little long. I do admit that it is like maybe one of the longest Classicvanias. I'm gonna give Castlevania 4. I'm putting it in S rank. I think it is the perfect game to get you into the series. I think it's like, if you're gonna play one Castlevania game and you're new to the franchise, that's the one you should play. And it deserves its legendary status because of the music, because of the level design, because the boss fights are fun, because of the multi-directional whip makes it easier to play for new players. It's a great game from back to front. The atmosphere is out of control. The atmosphere is just dripping with atmosphere. You're getting close to Dracula in that game, and the music and like the lighting and all the pixel art, it's so grimy and dark, and it just has the coolest atmosphere. I feel like the Sega fanboys will say Bloodlines look better. Yeah, it was also a big step in terms of technology at the time. Yeah, agreed, right? Yeah, totally. I agree with you, Schmausch. I think the Sega fanboys are gonna come in and say, no, Bloodlines looks better, Bloodlines performs better. There's like all these weird graphical effects in Bloodlines that makes Bloodlines a better game, but I think Bloodlines just doesn't have the same level of level design, the same caliber of level design. But we're not talking about Bloodlines yet. In my opinion, Castlevania 4 is an S rank. It's a great game. Next up is Castlevania Chronicles. This is another game that is really underrated. Castlevania Chronicles was originally released on the Sharp, I think it's called the Sharp 86000 PC in Japan. It was a Japan exclusive for the longest time, only able to be played on a Japanese computer. And then it was ported to the PlayStation in the late 90s, like 97 or something, like right before I think right before Symphony of the Night came out. And this game is underrated. It's hard. It's very hard. It's probably the hardest game in the franchise. I did return to it. So there's two modes in this game. There's the arrange mode and the original mode. I played the arrange mode in my version, which makes the game easier, and it was still fucking hard as hell. This game is brutal. I returned later and tried the original mode. I could not get past like level 5 or something. I was stuck on level 5. I just could not progress. I would like to come back to that original mode and try it again in the future for sure. But for now, we're gonna base this ranking based on my experience with the arranged mode. It's a reimagining of Castlevania 1 in a lot of ways. There's a lot of remastered levels, which is cool. It's kind of like a throwback to Castlevania 1. You're playing as Simon again, which is cool. The music in the arranged mode was new updated music, which was sometimes cheesy and then sometimes didn't fit. But overall, I think pretty okay. Level design wise, has some of the hardest levels in the series. The clock tower in Castlevania Chronicles is insanely difficult, insanely brutal, long level that is extremely punishing. I'm sure anyone that has played Castlevania Chronicles would agree with me that the clock tower in this game is one of the hardest stages in the franchise. That stage is so unfair. There's like gears popping off of walls that are blended with the background. The whole level is filled with traps. There's Medusa heads. Anything you think of. There's awful flea men. There's There's bone towers that block stairs. It's like rough. It's a really rough game, but I liked it. I think it's fun. I think it deserves a good ranking. I would put Castlevania Chronicles. Oh man, this is hard. Probably at a B ranking, tied with Castlevania 3. I think there are some things that hold it back from being as good as the original. Extra, Jeff likes it rough. I do like it rough. So I'm putting it in B for now. Castlevania Chronicles is a good game. It's underrated. You guys should check it out if you've never played it before. It's fun. It's a fun game. It deserves to be played. So moving on here, what was the next game in the order that we played it? The next game is Rondo of Blood. So Rondo of Blood was originally a Japanese only release. This was another kind of like random game. Came out on the PC Engine, which is a console in Japan. It was never localized to the States, only in Japan, and then eventually it was released in the States much later. TurboGrafx 16. The PC Engine, right? Yeah, PC Engine. And this game, just to put it bluntly, is amazing. I think the problem with Rondo of Blood, it never got the right chance to shine in the Western market. There's never been an easy way to play it, which is a shame. And it took so long for like Konami to actually like localize it for a way that people have a console to play it. And even now, I feel like a lot of people have not played this game. Talking about the new implementations into the franchise here, we have we start out with Richter, and as you continue throughout the game, you can unlock a different character, right? You can unlock a different character, and this game also has different routes as well. So this is a really kind of is a merging between the Simon's Quest-esque exploration stuff, where you're trying to find a secret to go through the level, and like kind of combining it really well with Castlevania, like the classic Vania style, like Super Castlevania 4. It's a really good merging of the two styles. It's still classic Vania, but it has a little bit of that find that secret, find a different way through the level kind of vibe to it. In my original playthrough, I did get Maria, and Maria is one of the best characters in like all the franchise. Just playing as Maria feels so good. She's so strong and makes the game feel so different. Really feels like a different game sometimes playing as Maria compared to Richter. I did return to the game later in a second playthrough and did beat it Richter only. I did do that as well, and the game felt very different. So the fact that there is a second character that makes the game a little bit easier, I think is good for accessibility. I think it's good that there's a character that makes the game easier to play. I think that's a bonus. That's a bonus point for this game here. It has a great soundtrack. The style of the cutscenes are so like really cool, like late 80s, early 90s like anime style. And the music has like this really cool like fusion, like Japanese fusion vibe. And all the pixel art is just fantastic, the entire game. And this is another game that's just dripping with amazing atmosphere. Yeah, favorite version of Bloody Tears, like the Bloody Tears in Rondo of Blood is definitely like tied with me probably with how good the Bloody Tears is. Like with Castlevania 4, it's like tied for me. So in my opinion, Rondo of Blood is an S rank. Rondo of Blood is top tier Castlevania, one of the best games in the franchise. You should play it if you haven't played it already. Go play Rondo of Blood. It's not an easy game. None of the games are necessarily easy in the franchise, but worth playing and trying. I mean, I don't shame people. Like whatever way you want to play is valid. If you want to use save states and play these games, do it. It's better than not playing them at all, in my opinion. So there's no shame in using save states to play these games. I think a lot of people don't even recognize it's like different than Dracula X. Dracula X is like just a completely different game. We'll get to Dracula X in a second. So yeah, we're gonna put that in the S rank here, and let's continue on. Rondo Blood's great, S rank game. one of the best in the franchise. Okay, next, after Rondo of Blood, is Bloodlines for the Sega Genesis. So this game is a stickler for me. I like it. I did not enjoy my playthrough. I did not like the introduction of the limited continues and the password system. They changed it up here on the Sega Genesis, and they release a game that kind of interrupts what makes Castlevania. They made some changes here that didn't vibe with me and threw me off. So in this game, you start from the beginning and you can choose two characters. You can either choose Jonathan Morris, who uses a whip, and it has another character named Eric, who uses a spear. In my playthrough, we started the game as Jonathan Morris, but I didn't really understand how the continues system worked at the time. So I was just burning through my continues, thinking that when I get a game over, or when I lose my continues, that when I use that password, I would get all my continues back. That's what I thought in my playthrough. I thought, okay, we're gonna use our continues. Okay, we die a lot. Okay, it's fine. Let's just use the password and we'll get our continues back. But no, the password system in this game saves the number of continues that you had when you got to that level. And that ruined my first playthrough because I didn't know how it worked. I didn't realize that you had to, like, the password system was saving my continues. So I get all the way to like the 4th or 5th stage and I'm like, I can't do this. We don't have enough lives to do this. And I had to restart the game. I had to restart the game from the beginning, and I switched characters to Eric, who I later found is actually a better character. He's the easy mode in Bloodlines. He's better. Now, getting into like the level design aspects of Bloodlines is a Contra game to me. It's fast, the gameplay is fast paced, and the levels do not feel very Castlevania to me. The fact that it takes place in a more modern setting I think it's cool. I think it deserves credit, but I think it loses a bit of its Castlevania, like the feeling of a Castlevania game. I think there's a lot of points in this game where the graphical effects on the Genesis, the kind of graphical effects the developers were using, was actually interfering with my ability to play well. Especially a lot of the boss fights. There's just some like things where I'm not sure what's happening on the screen and where the hitbox is for a boss. And I remember there being a lot of that. I remember there being a lot of like, okay, this boss is doing some weird attack and there's all these like pixels flying around the screen that look really nice, but it interfered with my ability to play accurately and to know like what that attack is going to do to me as a player. So I feel like it's not very clear. Those graphical effects lead for a very confusing playthrough as a player, at least if you're playing blind. I know if you know the strats and you're going in, you know what to do, it becomes easy. But like the first play, I'm talking from the experience of a first playthrough. Yeah, the boss fight on the tower, right, where the boss is like spinning around and it's trying to do like this 3D effect. And I don't know where the hitbox is. I don't know, like, is this going to hurt me? Is this not going to hurt me? And then also like the weird like robot boss, that like the gear boss that like shoots gears at you. That's another example where that boss was just like, I don't know what to do. And all these graphical effects that's going on in this boss fight is making me frustrated. There's a really hard boss rush towards the end as well of Bloodlines. Bloodlines is not my favorite, to be honest. Bloodlines to me is on the same level as like a Simon's Quest probably. I'd probably put it down here at C. It's better than Castlevania The Adventure, but it's not as good as these other games up here, in my opinion. The music is good. It doesn't have the same atmosphere as these other games, especially Castlevania 4 and Rondo of Blood. I didn't like the game that much. I think it gets this kind of reverence from the fan base because it's a Genesis game. Not many people played it back in the day, so it gets this kind of like legendary, like, oh, it's so underrated. Oh, it's so cool that it's modern. Like, it takes place in a different setting. Like, I get it. Oh, I also forgot to mention that the character has like, each character has like a special ability where Jonathan Morris can swing from the ceiling and Eric can do like a leap with his spear, and just want to say that those abilities, they somehow made the swinging worse than Castlevania 4. They somehow found a way to make swinging from the ceiling worse. And also I got to that section in that game and didn't know what to do with Jonathan Morris. I got to the section where you're supposed to like swing across this area, this pit, and they never tell you that your character can swing. In Castlevania 4, they teach you very early in the game that you swing your whip at the little circular like a ring, and you're able to like swing back and forth. But in Bloodlines, they don't teach you that. They don't teach you early in the game that you can use your whip to swing on the ceiling. So as a result of that, I lost a lot of lives not knowing the mechanic, and then later have to reset the game because I didn't know. So I think there's a lot of things in Bloodlines that just kind of piss me off. It's not designed well. That's all I'm gonna say. And that's a reflection of my first playthrough. You know, this is not someone that's like speedrunning the game, that played it a bunch of times, that like grew up with it as a kid. I played this game for the first time just last year. It's not great, in my opinion. All right, moving on. Enough of Bloodlines. We've complained about Bloodlines enough. Moving on here. The next game that we played was Dracula X. Oh, goody. Dracula X for the Super Nintendo. So this is the last of the 16-bit era games. This was released on the Super Nintendo. It is a kind of a reimagining of Rondo of Blood, but there's no second playable character, there's no Maria, and it controls way different. And the levels are actually very different as well. So nothing about it is very similar to Rondo of Blood, except for like some of the story points and some of the environments are slightly similar, but the game is very different. I did not like how Richter feels in this game. He feels very different than the Rondo Blood Richter. Also, I don't like how so many of the levels are just spear guards, like waiting at a stairs. Just the whole game is just filled with like the purple spear guards that like poke at you, and they just copy and paste that enemy all over the goddamn game. They're just everywhere. In the clock tower, in the castle, in the graveyard, they're everywhere. This enemy, they really use it way too much in this game. And the Dracula fight, what were they thinking with the Dracula fight? You have to redo this fucking awful level every time, and you get to the Dracula fight and there's pits in the floor. There's fucking death pits in the floor. So you get hit by the fireball and you fall into the fucking pit. And it's a fucking nightmare. The game is a fucking atrocious nightmare. Not because it's difficult, because it's just not designed well. It's just, the design is just not up to par with the other games in the series. And I want to show you guys a video. I want to show you a highlight from my Dracula X playthrough right now. Let's take a look at a highlight from my boss fight. This summarizes my experience with Dracula X. Let's watch. Enjoy. Okay? That's what I want you guys to remember about Dracula X. Every time you want to hear, anytime anyone mentions Dracula X, this is what you need to think of. Okay? Never forget this. Never forget. All right? I want this to be drilled into your brains. This over and over again. This game is miserable. I'm going to put this Dracula X probably at a D or an E ranking. I don't think it's as bad as Legends, maybe. It may be a little bit better than Legends. I'm going to put it at D for now, but that might change. We're going to put Dracula X at a D rank. It has a some sense of design elements, while Legends is just completely lacking in any common sense. But at least Dracula X, there is a little bit of common sense in there. Like, I don't know, I hate the backflipping too. I hate the backflipping mechanic. There's so many things I go on about in this game. It's not good. Oh, you know it's not good. Okay. should be a spot where it says time I can't get back. Yeah, it gets its own special category. Waste of time. I never want to play Dracula X ever again. And let's continue here. The next game in the marathon is the Symphony of the Night. Yeah, right after Dracula X is our Symphony of the Night. Okay, guys, Symphony of the Night. Here we go. Symphony of the Night is a legendary game. It created a genre. Like, it is so influential. It created the Metroidvania genre, like straight up. It is very influential. It's one of the most celebrated games in the series for a reason. People love the hell out of that game. And I think for a lot of people, it was huge. The PlayStation 1 came out and people were excited for a new Castlevania game, and then boom, here's Symphony of the Night, and it just blows people away. The game is massive. The castle is so cool to explore. The music is great. You're playing as Alucard again, and Alucard just has so much style about him. The game just oozes with style. But I will say that for it being the first game, so those are all like the positives, right? It's like so good. It's a great game. There are some negatives as a result of it being the first game. First, there's some issues with the balancing in the game. And the difficulty levels across the game is very like one-sided. To the beginning of the game is like pretty difficult. Like it gets not difficult, but like the beginning of the game is like the only challenge. And then you get further into the game. And it's like I'm not being challenged anymore, and I'm just like coasting through. I think some people would put this as a plus. They like that it's broken. They like that it can be broken in like many ways, and like you can just like get super overpowered and just destroy everything. But I think to me that's a negative. I don't like that I wasn't challenged. It was the easiest Dracula fight of all time. I got to that end and I was just destroying everything. And I want like at least a little bit of challenge. So to me, while I did love Symphony of the Night, and I understand why people love it so much, to me, Symphony of the Night is probably an A rank. I put Symphony of the Night as an A rank. Maybe even B, to be honest. Because I think some of the other Metroidvanias are better than Symphony of the Night. They take what Symphony of the Night started, and they improved on the formula. Definitely not I understand that they're not the first one, but I'm gonna put Symphony of the Night as a B right now. It's a good game, and I know people are so nostalgic about it and they love it, and I feel you. I understand your opinion. I understand that you love it and you're nostalgic about it, but for me, I played some of those other those other Metroidvania Castlevania games, those ones that are focused on exploration, the RPG ones, man, and I think there's some that are better than this one. But yeah, it's good. It's a good game. We might put it back up in A later. We'll see. We'll come back to it. Okay, so next in the marathon is Legends, which we already placed. We did Legends first. Legends is trash shit. Don't play Legends. It's not a good game. We've already put Legends at the very bottom. At the E, it is one of the worst games in the franchise. There's no redeeming qualities in Legends. There's not even one part of the game that I enjoyed. Okay, moving on. The next game that we played is, after Castlevania Legends, we played Castlevania 64. So my opinion, this is my opinion, my stance, my experience, okay? I'm not saying that this is this is the best Castlevania game of all time, and if you don't agree with me, you're an idiot. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is my opinion. Castlevania 64 is nostalgic for me. I played it as a kid. I rented it from Blockbuster. It was my first Castlevania game as a kid. I didn't even know what Castlevania was, and I rented Castlevania 64 from Blockbuster, and I put it into my N64, and I don't get past the first stage, but still, to me, that art style, the kind of being reminded of that kind of generation of games is very nostalgic for me. Castlevania 64 is the perfect representation of Castlevania, the classic Castlevania games, in a 3D environment. The game is janky, but so is Castlevania 1 and Castlevania 3, those games are janky too. Those NES games, Simon's Quest is janky. There is a level of jank in Castlevania that has always been there, like hidden under the surface. Castlevania 64 has that level of jank. It has a level of, oh man, why did I fall off those stairs there? Like Castlevania 3. Castlevania 3, you're walking up the stairs and you just like fall off. You just fall off the stairs, and that's part of the game. Like, oh, your input didn't work there, get good. And Castlevania 64 has that same aspect. Sure, there's some shitty parts of Castlevania 64, like the puzzles suck, the villa is an awful stage, the stage where you have to like carry that bomb around is one of the worst levels in the franchise probably. But if you look past that, if you put all the parts together, the music, the atmosphere, the way that it's built around these stages that actually have legitimate platforming challenges in them. It's not guided hand-holding platforming like the other 3D games like the PS2 games or Lords of Shadows. There's actually legitimate platforming challenges, which is refreshing. It feels like a classic Vania in many ways. Also, the camera. People complain like, oh yeah, the camera is jank, the camera doesn't work. It's hard to play, it's not fair. But the camera is just, you just have to look at the camera as being an enemy. In Castlevania 1, for example, death is really fucking brutal. The death fight, when you're getting to death the first time in Castlevania 1, it's really fucking hard. It can take you like an hour to 2 to beat that level. But Castlevania 64, you just have to think of the camera being like an enemy hiding in the shadows. Castlevania 64, the camera is just the enemy that is there to fuck you up. And that's part of it. That's part of what makes Castlevania 64 interesting game. I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I like Castlevania 64 more than Symphony of the Night. This is my opinion. I don't think it's a better game. There's a lot of bullshit, but I think Castlevania 64 is like, it has all this shit in it, but it comes together to be like a really cool experience. Yeah, I did have a really hard time at Castlevania 64. I did really fucking hate it at the time. But looking back, I think it's really underrated. It is a cult classic. It deserves way more attention than it does. It's a great game. I think it's a good game. I think it's fun. I think the jank is part of the fun, and you just deal with it and get to it and try your best. I will say that the last fight is really hard. The last fight is really hard, and there's some, it's really tough. The Dracula fight is really hard. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we're gonna move it back down here to B. I think it's on the same level of Symphony of the Night, but I want to keep this spot here for, we might as well just talk about the prequel sequel right now, which is Legacy of Darkness, which is basically like a DLC director's cut. This game here, it's basically like a lot of the same stages. You play as a different character, and you're revisiting a lot of the areas that are like remixed and reimagined with new puzzles in them. But they improve the controls in this game. So as a result of the improved controls, the game is much easier. So if you want to play one Castlevania 64 game and you don't like a hard difficulty, you should play this one, Legacy of Darkness, because it's mostly the same, but has like is way easier. And I think this is more enjoyable for your average player. But Castlevania 64, I like that it's hard. So this is the hardest part for me. Like, which one do I like more? I like Legacy of Darkness for being more fair to the player. But I think that the non-fairness, the unfairness in Castlevania 64 makes it more appealing as a game. So I'm kind of like confused which one is A and which one is B. I'm not going to put them on the same level, but I'm confused about which one I like more. Because I like Castlevania 64 because the brutalness of it, it feels like Dark Souls at times. The brutalness of it is like redeeming. It's not the same game. They're different games. I would not call them the same game, but there's some similarity. There's like some similarity areas that you go to, and there's new stages as well in this one, so they're not the same. They're different enough to be considered different games, but it does feel like basically N64 like DLC. It feels like kind of like a DLC. I'm gonna put Castlevania 64 here because I think it's overall the better, more fun experience for me. I enjoyed I enjoyed getting my ass kicked in Castlevania 64. Legacy of Darkness was maybe too easy. Okay, let's continue on here. So for now, we're going to put Castlevania 64 at A, Legacy of Darkness at B. That's what we've decided on for now. We can always revisit that later. Okay, moving on here to the next game in the marathon, which was... next is Circle of the Moon. Next is Circle of the Moon for the Game Boy Advance. So this is the first Game Boy Advance game. This is the first portable Metroidvania style game. We're playing as Nathan. This game is one of the hardest, most brutal Metroidvanias I've ever played in my life. Requires so much grinding and luck. And the card system is complete RNG. You can go the entire game and not get any these fucking cards. People always talk about these goddamn cards like, oh, the card system is so cool. You get to combine them and you get all these cool skills. I love messing with the card system. It really makes you experiment. Dude, I didn't get any fucking cards the entire game. So I don't know what people are talking about the fucking cards. I never got them. I went the entire fucking game and I had like 3 cards or some bullshit. So anyone out there that's like, oh, I love Circle the Moon. It's the best game. It's so much fun. I loved it when I was a kid. It's complete bullshit. The fucking drop rates are ass. Do not design your game around drop rates that you don't get to experience the whole fucking point of the game. The whole fucking point of the game is to experiment with the cards. You don't get the fucking cards. What's the fucking point? You never get the cards. I'm sitting here, I'm trying to get a card. I'm trying to get a fucking card here. They don't give you the cards. I went the entire fucking game and I couldn't even interact with the main function in the game. I'm so angry about Circle the Moon. I'm still brutally angry about Circle the Moon. And also the Dracula fight is one of the worst in the franchise. The Dracula fight is you're literally sitting around waiting. And then you have like a second to try to hit this fucking floating eyeball. And then it turns into this fucking mega thing and it comes at you again. So Circle the Moon, I kind of wanted to show you guys what happened in my Circle of the Moon playthrough. Let's look back a little bit on what happened in Circle of the Moon here. And here on my YouTube channel, you can watch every game. Let's go. And I also have a shit ton of chapters here. So every game you can find exactly what I'm talking about. Look at all this. I do this for every video. I waste so much time on these. Oh, thank you so much for the follow. Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. This game made me do this. It's edamame time. All right. I want to give up. I think I should give up. We have edamame, guys. Everything's under control. Edamame time. So I went insane. I started role-playing with edamame and dancing with edamame on stream. I started making the edamame kiss each other like this. This is me. And this is chat. Jeff and chat. Yeah, see us kiss. This is me kissing chat. This is me on Circle of the Moon. This is what happens when you play when you're on your 15th Castlevania game in a row and you're having a meltdown at the Dracula fight and you're eating edamame on stream and you start crying.
These are the saddest edamames. These are the saddest edamames I've ever eaten. This is the
edamames are seasoned with your salty tears. Your bloody tears are seasoning the edamame.
That edamame of my life.
You're crying. I mean, look at this. This is brutal emotion. This is real man emotion.
I like the edamame Jeff and chat roleplay more.
That's me and chat making out.
Hey Jeff. Hey, why don't you try the battle arena again?
And here's Schmausch.
I'm sure you'll do it this time.
This is Schmausch edamame.
Okay.
Trying to tell me to do the battle arena again.
Oh god. What has happened to my stream?
The game is a nightmare. And here's the fucking Dracula fight, which is hell. Half of the fight, you're doing this bullshit. Half of the fight, you have to do this. You have to do this to spam your attack so you don't get hit by his like super move.
Positioning. It's all about positioning.
Here's me complaining. Let's see when I get it. Let's go back to the back here to the beginning. Let's see when I finally did it.
Oh, I did it! I fucking did it! Yes! Oh, thank you!
After 22 hours. This game took me fucking 22 hours. How much grinding I had to do to get meat and items and cards and bullshit and fucking bullshit. Things that just waste your fucking time. This game's a waste of time. It wastes your time. It doesn't care about you. It just says, go fucking kill this thing 30 times and good luck. Kill this fucking gargoyle 100 times. Good luck with getting a card. Go kill this fucking Medusa head 50 times. Good luck. Fuck this game. Alright, so that's enough of my Circle of the Moon. I'm gonna give Circle of the Moon... Where are you? Right here. Our friend Nathan here. You're gonna get a big fucking D, friend. Go fuck you, Nathan. Fuck you, Circle of the Moon. Fuck you, card system. You're trash. A good chunk of that time was repeatedly bashing your head against a boss. Well, not only a boss, many bosses. Because every boss in that game is... You beat your head against the fucking boss. And the solution every time was... Go find the cross in the castle, come back to the boss fight, spam, get full hearts, spam the cross. That's every boss fight. So, Circle of the Moon is a big fat D. Circle of the Moon can go eat shit. I think the next was Kid Dracula. I think the next thing in the marathon was indeed Kid Dracula. So we didn't play the Game Boy version of Kid Dracula, we played the Japanese version. Interesting game in that it's completely different than every other game in the franchise. You play as Dracula, and it's like a Mega Man clone. It is essentially a Mega Man game. It's a good game. It's a good game, but I have some issues with some of the design aspects of Kid Dracula, and I wouldn't say it probably reaches the highs as like an actual Mega Man game. Some of the designs are really cute. The enemy designs are cute. I like that like all the different attacks work really in a lot of different ways. The homing, I remember the homing attack being really OP, but the last level, guys, the last level is insane. It is such a difficult spike, and it is maybe I think the only point in the marathon where I used a save state. Other than Haunted Castle, which Haunted Castle, we played it, but it isn't actually on this list here, so we're not ranking Haunted Castle. Haunted Castle would probably be a D or an E, though. So, for now, Kid Dracula, we'll rank Kid Dracula. I think Kid Dracula is probably a C. It's not the worst, but it's not in the top tier. It's a bottom tier half here. It's the top of the worst, you know? It's a C rank. Yeah, it was a goal stream. Yeah, so this was a sub goal. This was our first sub goal of the marathon. It wasn't even going to be included. We reached that sub goal, so we played it. I didn't use a save state in any other Castlevania game other than this one. We never used save states in any of these games. No save states were used except for Kid Dracula on the last level because I just couldn't figure out the boss fight. In Kid Dracula. It was really just beating my head against a wall for like 2 hours. But now that I'm looking here and I see that Simon's Quest and Kid Dracula at the same level, and I'm like, really? Simon's Quest? It's like, do I really feel like Bloodlines and Kid Dracula are around the same? Yeah, I guess that's fine. I guess that's okay. Next is Harmony of Dissonance for the Game Boy Advance. So this is the second Game Boy Advance game that's here. You play as just Belmont. This is a new Belmont. This game is okay. It's not the worst. It's not the best. My problem, first of all, one of my biggest complaints is like they really went overboard with the outlining on the character. Like, you know, in like Symphony of Night, the character has like a shadowing effect and it looks like really cool. But in Harmony of Dissonance, they kind of go a little too much on the shadowing effect. And that kind of gives me a headache. I got used to it after a while, but yeah, not the best. I do like the magic system in this game, but it was really overpowered. Once I learned how good the magic system was, I was kind of spamming it towards the end and didn't really have to think too hard. So I think this game has some balancing issues. What else can I say about Harmony of Dissonance? Oh yeah, the map. The map is probably the most confusing. The map was probably one of the most confusing of any of the Metroidvanias, because you have like, you're like switching back and forth between like different castles, and they also like connect, and you're going through these teleporters and you don't really understand what they're doing, and you're just lost. You just get fucking lost. It's such a Castle A plus B, Castle A and Castle B. Are they connected? Are they separate? Like, I still don't know. I still don't know if they were the same castle or two different castles or like four castles. I didn't get it. And I felt like I was just completely lost. The entire playthrough, I just felt like I was lost. This is probably the most confusing of all the Metroidvanias, where like I just never knew where to go. This one and Dawn of Sorrow were probably the biggest, for most confusing in terms of map design. So Harmony of Dissonance is not a great game, not a bad game. I'm gonna put Harmony of Dissonance also at like a C ranking. I think Harmony of Dissonance fits in with the C. I don't also remember the music that well. I think the music kind of just flashes by. I don't really remember what any of the music sounds like. Nothing was really too memorable. The bosses were fine, I guess. I don't actually remember the ending. I'd have to like rewatch it. This is like a game that kind of feel like I kind of forget what happened. But it did feel like Symphony of the Night Junior on the Game Boy Advance. It felt like a lot in common with Symphony of the Night, just not as good. I'll keep it at a C. I liked it more than Circle of the Moon, but it doesn't reach Symphony of the Night. It doesn't reach the greats of Symphony of the Night, or yeah. So I think next is Aria of Sorrow. Yes, Aria of Sorrow. And this one, I think, okay, so Aria of Sorrow, I think this is the highlight of maybe all of the Metroidvanias. And I have a few reasons why I think that. I like that it was extremely lean. There wasn't a lot of repeating, copy-pasted areas, and the introduction of the soul system was just so much fun. And you're fighting these enemies, and all these enemies are dropping these souls that you can use, and they're so much fun to experiment with. So I've really enjoyed Aria of Sorrow. The music is good. I like Soma as a character. The story is starting to get more like, and this is where the franchise started to feeling more Japanese, and that it's like feels like a manga or an anime or something. But it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me that I think they're just trying to target a new audience. Yes, I think Aria of Sorrow is just the culmination of them taking good things from Symphony of the Night and combining them with Circle of the Moon and Harmony of Dissonance and making like the perfect Metroidvania. That being said, Aria of Sorrow is either an A or an S rank, but I don't think that Aria of Sorrow doesn't deserve to be on the same tier as Castlevania IV or Rondo of Blood. I think that's my opinion. I think I'm going to put Aria of Sorrow on the same level as Castlevania Belmont's Revenge and Castlevania 64 here on the A rank. Oh, I just realized the Japanese version. So when we put Castlevania 3, we didn't actually play the American version. We played the Japanese version. So I just realized the Japanese version is here, and we're putting the Japanese version of Castlevania 3 here, and then we're actually not going to place this one. We didn't play the American version. Aria of Sorrow, right? Aria of Sorrow, we're going to put Aria of Sorrow as an A rank. A rank. Aria of Sorrow. I liked it more than Symphony of the Night, but not quite as much as Castlevania 4 or Rondo of Blood. Continuing on here, the next game we played was Lament of Innocence. The next game we played was for the PS2. This was the first PS2 game in the marathon. And I have mixed feelings about Lament of Innocence. I get what they were trying to do with the castle hub and like going into different like levels that felt like kind of like I feel like they're still trying to do like a level based sort of thing, and then when you're finished the level and the boss, you come back to the hub and you choose your next level or whatever. Kind of like similar to Belmont's Revenge 2, where there's like a hub screen and you can choose like the level you want to go to. But my issue with Lament of Innocence comes down to the gameplay. It's just not very interesting. It's just not an interesting game. I like Leon Belmont. I think his character is cool. I think it's a cool origin story. But the gameplay just has a lot. It's just kind of boring. Yeah, all the levels are very similar. After a while, it's like you're walking around the same looking rooms over and over again, and you're just trying to find like 3 switches to hit that opens a door somewhere. And like that's the game in like a nutshell. Basically, you're running around, you're trying to find the 3 switches, you hit the 3 switches, you go back to the door. There's so much backtracking too. You're just backtracking back and forth through these massive action, these levels, man. You're just going back and forth, sometimes going the wrong way, then having to go all the way. There's no fast traveling either. There's no like easy way to get from one side of the map to the other. You just have to keep backtracking until you find the right way. So Lament of Innocence left me a little disappointed. Not my favorite game in the marathon. I would say I like Lament of Innocence worse than the N64 games, easily. Now the question is, where do we put it? It's either a C or a D ranking. I'm going to put it... I think I'm going to put Lament of Innocence at a D. I think Lament of Innocence wasn't that great. It has some really good music. I think it was just kind of boring and just kind of average, and not my favorite game in the marathon. It was just boring. The camera was bad. The platforming in the game was bad. You can't control the camera, and then the fighting, what I thought wasn't particularly any fun. I'd say C. Yeah, maybe it is better than Adventure and Dracula X. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is a C. Yeah, I guess I could put it in C. I mean, putting it at the same as Dracula X would be pretty harsh. So yeah, we're gonna keep Lament of Innocence. Yeah, we'll say it's a C. Okay, moving on is the next game. And after Lament of Innocence, we played Dawn of Sorrow. So Dawn of Sorrow was the first DS Castlevania game. This game has some aspects that I didn't experience because I played on emulator. So I used a patch version of the game that got rid of all of the touchscreen implementation. So I know a lot of people have a negative opinion of this game because they didn't like they have to use the stylus to do those the relics after boss fights, and if you mess it up, you'd have to do the fight over again. I know that if I played probably with that intended way, that I probably wouldn't like the game as much as I do. I think it's like as good as Aria of Sorrow, if not just a little bit below Aria of Sorrow, in my opinion. The map is pretty confusing. I got lost a bunch. I didn't know what to do. I think some of the graphics kind of... there's like one point early in the game where I had to hit a switch, and it didn't look like a switch to me, and I ran around like an idiot for like 40 minutes because I couldn't tell that like it was a switch by a door. It just looked like a weird like detail. Maybe I'm just stupid or something, but that really messed me up for a while. So I would say that Dawn of Sorrow has some really cool improvements over Aria of Sorrow. They added the weapon upgrading system where you use the souls of enemies to upgrade your weapons. That was really cool. And like I said, I didn't have to deal with the magic seals, so I didn't have to deal with that frustration of using the stylus or the touchscreen. That being said, I think it was a really fun game. Maybe one of my favorites, but I don't think I like it as much as Aria of Sorrow. I think I'm going to put Dawn of Sorrow at a B ranking. The music is insanely good, by the way. I hated the last boss in Dawn of Sorrow. I think it's one of the worst Dracula fights. One of the worst fights in the series is that last Dawn of Sorrow. It's such a bad climax to the game. I think we were joking that during that stream that the janitor made the boss fight, because it's such a bad climax to a great game that it sets it back a little bit, in my opinion. So we're gonna put Dawn of Sorrow at B. Okay, moving on here. Let's keep going. We're going at a great pace. So after Dawn of Sorrow was a hidden gem within this series, Curse of Darkness. Now this is an interesting game. It is very different from most games in the series. It is an action game. It's very similar. It's similar to Lament of Innocence in some ways, but it improves on it. You can finally control the camera in the 3D space, and it feels good. You also it was the first 3D Castlevania with a crafting system where you can craft armor and weapons, and they also added some mechanics with the Innocent Devil system, which is basically like very similar of like a Shin Megami Tensei game where you're collecting these devils, and you're upgrading them, and based on like what weapon you're using, the demons will go in different evolutionary paths. And that was really cool. That was a really cool evolution of a Castlevania game in a 3D space. That game, I loved that game, to be honest. It was really fun. It was a really fun game. Bosses were difficult still towards the end. Nice difficulty curve throughout. Music was great. Music was fantastic. I think this game deserves way more love. I would say it's maybe just a little long. It's a little bit long. It tires out by the end. By the end, you're just like, okay, I'm ready for this to be over because of how long the game is. But I really enjoyed Curse of Darkness, and Curse of Darkness was big for me as well because I started making connections back to the TV show, the anime on Netflix. In Curse of Darkness, we find our characters Hector and Isaac and Grant. What is his name? Grant, the guy with the clock. I think his name is Grant, right? Saint Germain. That's what I'm thinking of. Saint Germain. All these characters that play really big roles in the anime, the Netflix and the Castlevania anime, are introduced in Curse of Darkness, which I had no idea. When I watched the anime before I played all these games, I had no idea that they reference Curse. There were references to Curse of Darkness, a PS2 game. I really had no clue. And I think that's really cool. I think that's cool that the Netflix show really dug deep into the lore for the show, to introduce some of those aspects into the game. I thought that was really, really cool. It's really cool to reach back into the lore there and introduce it into the show. I mean, that was a really cool decision by the part of the team that worked on that anime. Curse of Darkness is a great game. If you never played Curse of Darkness, I recommend that one. At least check out my playthrough and see it for yourself. Like, it's a pretty cool game. There's a lot of stuff that was going on in that game that was unique in the franchise, that sets it apart from the other 3D games. I would say it's an actually good game for anyone. Like, I think most people will like it, versus like Castlevania 64 and some of the more janky stuff like Legacy of Darkness is maybe not for everyone. I understand that. So for that reason, Curse of Darkness is a top tier game. It's either a B or an A in my opinion, but I can't decide. Maybe I liked it so much and I kind of want to be bold in my statement here that I'm going to put it as an A rank. I really want to send across the message that this game is worth playing, and if you've ignored it, you are mistaken. So that's why we're going to put Curse of Darkness at the A rank in the franchise. Let's move on. We have a few more games here to place, so let's keep going here. Next is Portrait of Ruin, the second DS game in the marathon. So Portrait of Ruin is another cool game. This is the first game where you could switch two characters on the fly, Jonathan Morris and Charlotte. And I really thought this game was cool. This was a really cool game. this was a really cool game. There's some elements of this game that I wasn't a huge fan of. I feel like they introduced a lot of mechanics really early in the game, and then you never use them. Like a lot of there was like only a few points in the game where I had to use like switching the characters, like making a character wait and like switching really quickly. Like I feel like they only use it like a few times in the game. But yeah, acidic bubbles. Fandom just coming out hard here, just saying acidic bubbles, and exactly acidic fucking bubbles. Charlotte is amazing, so OP. Acidic bubbles is one of the most OP skills that you get in the game, and we really abused it throughout the playthrough. Another thing about Portrait of Ruin is the music's really good. I like that in Portrait of Ruin that like you're like it's like Mario 64 Castlevania. You're jumping into portraits. Yeah, you're jumping into portraits, and you're going to all these portraits, and when you go into these portraits, you end up in these like alternate universes, and they could be anything, which is really cool, which led to some like really cool like environment design that is like unique in the franchise. You're going to like Egypt, you're going to places that look like a town, you're going to like these weird fucked up like circus, like space circus, like upside down fucked up space circus. Just some of the level design was just really fun, and I like that Charlotte was like the magic user character, and she had all the magic attacks, and then Jonathan Morris was the physical character that had all the weapons and stuff. My one complaint about the two character system is the fact that just so much gear. Each character each had their own armor, so you'd pick something up in the overworld, and then you go into your inventory and you'd be like, what the fuck did I just pick up? And you're like searching through all your items, like trying to find whatever you just picked up was, and like what character used it. They could have added something in the inventory to be like a flag, like they could have marked it saying, oh, this is a new item. Too much gear. Yeah, it's the two character system made the gear overwhelming, the amount of gear that you get overwhelming, and I just felt like I could never find the armor that I wanted. So Portrait of Ruin is a good game. Music is good. I like Charlotte, and I like Jonathan Morris. I also like the ties to the lore, to Bloodlines. I thought that was really cool. Oh yeah, all the characters screaming out all the time, filthy cow. Yeah, there was at the time where they're adding voice acting to like portable games for the first time, so every character, every enemy, every character had to scream out the names of their attacks. So there's just so much spamming of voice acting in that game. Filthy cow, what's some other ones? I don't even remember. Acidic bubbles, that's all I remember. Acidic bubbles. Charlotte, every time she uses a spell, she has to say the name. And yeah, we loved that. We loved acidic bubbles. I see you. Ah, yeah. So there's some crazy shit in that game. So I like it. Do I like it more than? I think I like it more than Dawn of Sorrow, or about the same. I think I'd put these two DS games, Portrait of Ruin and Dawn of Sorrow, about a B probably. Hear it in my sleep to this day. Yeah, exactly. Ready, sister, say your prayers. Yeah, there's a lot of the really cheesy dialogue like that. So I think Portrait of Ruin and Dawn of Sorrow are around the same. They're all good. These are good. And then Order of Ecclesia, is that next? I think the next one is Order of Ecclesia, am I right? Yes, the next is Order of Ecclesia. Order of Ecclesia, I like the game. I never want to play it again. I like Order of Ecclesia. I never want to play it again. I like the character. What's her name? Shinoa? Is that her name? Shinoa? I like the character. I like the plot. The music is insanely cool. The music is really good. The character designs are cool. Every boss fight is a fucking wall. This is similar to Circle of the Moon, that the game requires grinding. It is also the most beautiful. Yeah, it is the most beautiful of the Metroidvanias. Agreed. But the game requires so much grinding, and I wasn't a huge fan of the find all the villagers side quest that you have to do to progress in the game. wasn't a huge fan. Wasn't a huge fan of, oh, go find this villager, go find this villager. Once you find all my villagers, you can go into the next part of the game. The bosses are infuriating. Overall, the bosses are infuriating. Some of the most frustrating boss fights in the franchise that will require you, the player, to go grind for money, to buy potions, to beat the bosses. What is the system called in that game? It's not the soul system, but it's like the relic system or something. All the names of all the weapons and stuff that you get in that game mean nothing. They're all in Latin. So you're going through your menu and you're trying to find your right skill to use, and you can't read it. You have to like look at a little picture in the description. It takes forever to find the item that you want. Some of the areas are really brutal. You get stuck in those. You can get stuck in those areas. There were a few times in that game we were exploring and we got stuck in the middle of a cave somewhere because we couldn't escape. We're stuck there. We keep dying over and over again to the same enemies. We're out of potions. It felt like Dark Souls in some ways. It is probably one of the more difficult Metroidvania games. One of the more difficult in the franchise. I liked it more than Circle of the Moon. I'm going to put Order of Ecclesia at also a B ranking. I think all three of the DS games deserve a B ranking. Even though I liked it less than these two games, I think it's fair to say that they belong with each other on the same row. Because I would definitely say that Order of Ecclesia is better than all these games here. I would not put Order of Ecclesia on the same ranking as Lament of Innocence. I think Order of Ecclesia is a way better game than Lament of Innocence. It's just frustrating, and I don't want to play it ever again. I just think it's frustrating, requires a lot of grinding, and it's not the best game here. So yeah, I think all these DS games are B games. They're all good games. They're all great. They're all top tier Castlevania games worth playing if you like Metroidvanias. These are overall better than the Game Boy games, which Circle of the Moon and Harmony Dissonance. Aria of Sorrow, though, I still think is the best out of the bunch. Aria of Sorrow is still my favorite out of all the Metroidvania games, all the Igavanias, as they say. I liked Aria of Sorrow the most, and then followed by the DS games, and then Harmony Dissonance, and then Circle of the Moon. That is my official ranking of the Igavanias right there. Okay, so we're coming down to the end here. We have 4 more games, the Lords of Shadows games, and then the Adventure Rebirth. So we're almost done our tier ranking. Thanks for sticking by me here, guys. I know this has been a long conversation, but I appreciate you guys being here in chat and giving me your feedback, and we can kind of discuss about each game as we're going along. It's been really fun. So yeah, let's wrap this up. Let's finish these last 4 games. The next game in the marathon was Adventure Rebirth, right? So this is another game that is underrated, in my opinion. It's an underrated game. It's underrated in the fact that you can't legally buy it anymore. It's not available to be bought. It was a Wii Shop exclusive game. WiiWare, right? It's a WiiWare game, and then when the Wii store went down, Konami never re-released it. Maybe they're planning to do that. We don't know. But it's a game that my uncle had to ship me. He had to ship me his Wii and the game. Well, not the game. The game was on the Wii. So he had to ship me his Wii from Germany. My uncle lives in Germany, and we were able to play this game thanks to my uncle Bobby in Germany. I really appreciate you. So I thought this game was fun. I thought it was cool. There was a throwback to, it's kind of a remake of the first Game Boy game. It's a remake of the Castlevania Adventure. It's pretty fun. It was pretty fun. There's some stages I didn't like. There was a stage that was like a maze that I thought was kind of lame. Felt like that level was pretty hard. The levels are really long actually, and it was pretty difficult. The Dracula fight was actually really fun. There's a lot of, I thought this game was really, really good. I'd probably rank this game Around a B probably. I put this at a B ranking. I thought it was a good throwback to the Game Boy games. It had the same kind of system with the getting the fire, like upgrading your whip and then being able to use like fire out of your whip. Had a lot of throwback to the Game Boy games and the enemy design. There was a lot of cool aspects of the adventure Rebirth. So we're gonna put that in B. Not the best Classicvania, but a nice, refreshing one. It was refreshing after all those Egavanias to go right into a Classicvania. That was just so much fun to play. It was just really fun. And let's wrap this up. So we have the last three. We have Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate, and Lords of Shadow 2. So moving on, the next game in the marathon, I think, was Lord of Shadows, which I lost a big portion of my playthrough because I never downloaded it. So this game, Lords of Shadows, is one of the worst games I played recently. Not just Castlevania games. One of the worst games I've played. From the crawling pace in the beginning, where you're going through like slow swamps, you're riding like these dumb fucking horses, and you're fighting the same enemies. Yeah, I lost footage from the beginning of the game, and the playthrough on YouTube starts like halfway through, and that's completely fine. No one cares. No one cares that they don't have to like. Out of all the games so far, it's gotten the worst viewership on YouTube. No one wants to watch it. Has my worst viewership out of any of the games so far in the marathon. Nobody wants to watch me play it. It's like you might as well the YouTube videos not even exist because nobody gives a fuck about it. So yeah, it has Patrick Stewart. And the graphics are good, and that's about it. The beginning of the game is basically going through brown fucking swamps, climbing the most annoying fucking hand-holdy bullshit. The game just telling you over and over again that you can't carry any more daggers. You get to a boss, it's a big fucking ice titan, and that boss fucking destroys you over and over again because the QTEs on stream don't match the controls in the game. You have to hold right trigger to grip constantly. And then you keep falling off the fucking Titan and then have to reclimb it again. Oh my god, that was trash. And the game is starting to finally gets good. It starts to get good. You're like, it's building up momentum. You get to like this cool castle area. You're doing all these like puzzles in like a Frankenstein area with all these like electricity and stuff. It's starting to get good. You're at a big climax. You're fighting cool bosses, and the game just shoots you out of the castle again into a fucking awful swamp area again, where you're shaking big poles to move crows around. The puzzles in the game are all shit. They're all RNG based or just like arbitrary. There's awful characters. It breaks the canon. It reboots the series. It ignores everything that happened before, which is kind of frustrating. Gabriel as a character isn't likable. The music box, yeah, so then after you do the crow section, there's the music box section, which is one of the worst sections in any Castlevania game, easily. One of the most frustrating sections ever is that music box section. God. And then after the music box, they throw you into some more shit areas where you're doing some bad platforming, a lot of bad puzzles that look like Myst. I can't say many good things about the game. The ending sucks. The last boss had some awful mechanics in it. The ending sucked. The cutscene after the ending pissed me off. Yeah, I'm gonna give Lords of Shadow an E. Lord of Shadows is an E ranking for me. One of my least favorite games in the franchise, one of my least favorite games of all time, potentially. Not just Castlevania, one of the worst games I've played that I had to pull my teeth to play that game. That's why I'd like, great, I have to stream today. It felt like torture. And also, you didn't play the DLC. Well, the DLC started with like trash replaying of the same areas. The DLC in Lords of Shadow 2 and Lords of Shadow 1 was just Okay, here's another chess puzzle. Okay, you have to fight all these enemies that you fought in an area earlier in the game. So there's no reason to do the DLC if it starts off and they're just repeating content. And I can't believe those poor souls back then bought that. I feel bad for you. I feel bad for you if you bought that DLC at one point and it wasn't included in the game. They ripped you off. You got fucked. Story is good if you take all three as one. Yeah, if I want a good story, I'll read a book. If I want a good story, I'll watch a movie. I don't come to Castlevania for like deep lore story, you know? Like the lore is cool and stuff, but like the games that are best in the franchise take preference over the gameplay aspects over the lore, you know? The games that are really good, they all have one thing in common, is the gameplay is really fucking good. And yeah, Mirror of Fate, this was the best story time. It's an S. I don't know. Okay, Mirror of Fate is the game that's going on YouTube now. I'm sorry, the YouTube channel, we're still uploading that to YouTube, so you can't watch this game, my playthrough yet, but I promise that the next section, the next part of that game will go up tonight on my YouTube channel. So if you're waiting for my Mirror of Fate playthrough, I still need to edit both of these games, actually. We haven't put them on YouTube yet. But yeah, Mirror of Fate is, I think, the best of the trilogy. It's not an outstanding game, but it doesn't have the peaks and the hills that the other two Lords of Shadows games have. It doesn't have these like crazy sections that are trash that makes you want to quit and delete the game off your computer. It just feels way more like consistent. There are some like weird puzzles like here and there, but like nothing that like ruined the game for me. It's still not it's a completely average game though. It's not good. I wouldn't say it's a good game. It's just average. It's just like fine. I'd say it's better than Lords of Shadow 1 and 2. I'm going to put Lord of Shadows Mirror of Fate at a C ranking. It's fine. I like that you can play as Simon. I did not like that they made Alucard and Trevor like the same person. Like, what were they thinking? Like, spitting in the face of the franchise like that, like 20 years, 25 years of Castlevania history down the drain by combining two characters into one. I think it was really stupid. The gameplay wise, it was fine. It's just your typical kind of puzzle action platformer. Going around, the fighting was less spongy than the previous games. Atmosphere was decent. Controls a little floaty, but didn't bother me too much. Boss fights got challenging toward the end. I thought it was decent. I thought it was a decent game, but definitely not top tier. Still the bottom ranking game. And finally, we're at our last game in the ranking here, our Lords of Shadows 2. This game... Yeah, the Metroid Dread boss fights. Also, yeah, this gets a bonus point because Lords of Shadow has some aspects that reminded me of Metroid Dread, which I really like Metroid Dread. So I think this game was a nice, was a learning step for Mercury Steam, the developer, to get to Metroid Dread. Like, this game was like a necessary evil for Mercury Steam to learn from and then improve on Samus Returns. Probably I never played Samus Returns, but I'm sure it's better than this game. And then I finally get to the level where they were able to make Metroid Dread, which is a fucking great game. They knocked it out of the park with Metroid Dread, and I'm happy that the team has gotten better over the years. You know, they went from this to Metroid Dread in just over, I don't know, this came out like 10 years ago, right? So they've really improved. Mercury Steam really improved over the years here. And last, we have Lords of Shadow 2. Okay, this is the first time in the series that we get to play as Dracula, which is Gabriel from the last game. They make a Belmont Dracula, which I also don't like. I think that was fucking stupid. Like, the whole point about Belmont is that, like, Belmont fucks Dracula up, but now Dracula's also a Belmont. So it's like they really fuck things up with the lore. This game, there were some like good parts. There were some good parts of this game, and then there were some bad parts. A lot of the bad parts were like the sections in the modern day era where you're like wandering around the city. And this game was also kind of, we had some performance issues early on, so I had to replay the game, but like the second playthrough went much smoother once we figured out we had to cap the frame rate. But I feel like this port is also kind of shit. Like the PC port, they should have spent more time making sure we could optimize it on my PC. There's no reason that we should have had those performance issues. The mirror puzzles were stupid. Yeah, there was a lot of bad puzzles, a lot of bad stealth sections. Some of the boss fights were fun. The last boss was hell. I liked it more than the first one. I think it's definitely an improvement. You could control the camera this time. The enemies weren't as spongy as the first game. The battle system was an improvement. It definitely was an improvement. But overall, still not a great game. Still not a great game. Last boss was really shocking difficulty spike. That actually, I was at the last boss in one stream and we couldn't even do it. I had to go to bed and wake up the next day refreshed to even beat that boss. It was really fucking hard. Lords of Shadows 2, we're gonna give it a D ranking. I think it belongs right in the middle between Mirror of Fate, which is a C, and Lord of Shadow 1, which is an E ranking. So this, I think I'm happy with this tier list here. I think this is what we're gonna go with as my official ranking of the marathon. Okay, now Phantom wants me to sing Bloody Tears. Phantom is requesting some karaoke, and when we're requested with karaoke, we do it. So let me load up our Bloody Tears here. Got some bloody tears, got some bloody tears, got some bloody tears, bloody tears, bloody tears. I've got bloody tears, bloody tears, bloody tears. I've got bloody tears, bloody tears. Got some bloody tears, got some bloody tears. Do 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 do. Bloody tears, got some bloody tears, got some bloody tears. Do 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 do. Bloody tears, bloody tears. I've got bloody tears, bloody tears, bloody tears, bloody tears. I've got bloody tears. Okay, thank you for redeeming Sing Bloody Tears, Phantom. I appreciate it. And that is my rendition of Bloody Tears. Bloody tears, got some bloody tears. This is quite some OP content we got here. Yeah, this is the top tier content. So here it is, guys. Here's my list. Here's my ranking of every Castlevania game that I've dedicated my life to over the past 5 months. This is what we accomplished together. If you have any questions, if you have any complaints, suggestions about my ranking, fuck off. Yeah, fuck off. I'm glad if you're watching this on YouTube. Go fuck yourself. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this ranking.